I love love. Okay.
I do too.
And there's a story that you fell in love with a stripper. I mean, you have to tell the story.
Dude.
So how did you fall in love with somebody? Not that there's anything wrong with that profession, but it's romantic. It's like a True Romance, by the way. Great movie.
It is a great film. It's truly a great film.
And even Brad Pitt, who makes a brief appearance, is genius. There's so much good acting there. Anyway, so tell me that love story.
All right, so that like I said, I get from my dad. I get that fear of being abandoned. I lied to my wife for 9 years until she leaves, and I was in Charleston, South Carolina. And what happened was, I noticed that Susan, she was not coming to bed like she used to, and she'd stay up all night long, and sometimes she'd go and be gone a few hours and everything else. And I'm like, well, something's going on. And I'd pass by her computer, and she would minimize the screens, and I'm like, well, got to figure out what the hell's going on. So put a keylogger on her system,
as anybody should in a relationship.
Absolutely, because you trust them.
Yeah,
so why not?
You should be tracking all their movements, all their typing.
Exactly. Like I said, I was the control freak too.
It's romantic.
So I found out she'd been cheating on me, and she was.
See, here you go. They had a reason.
I justified. So I found out she's cheating on me. She was asleep when I found it out, and I sat there looking at it, and I was like, well, shit. So got up, walked in the bedroom, opened up the wardrobe, got a suitcase out, started putting her clothes in it. Then she wakes up. She's like, where are you going? I'm like, I'm not. You are. Well, my bravado disappeared pretty quickly. I took about a week of both of us crying and arguing and everything else. And she finally left. And I went through this depression. I was in Charleston, South Carolina. I would just walk around the house kind of stumbling in a daze. Realized I was getting suicidal, and was smart enough to do something about it. And picked up the phone book, and that's where there's always this sense of humor. So I picked up the phone book. I'm going through the yellow pages. I'm like, psychologist, criminal psychologist, because I need that. And, called this psychologist, crying to her. I mean, crying on the phone, told her everything. I'm this criminal. This is what's happened. She's like, come in now. So I go in, spill my guts, and saw her for about 4 months. And I joke about it, but it's true. She was trying to get me to stop breaking the law and to go into real estate. And I remember telling her, is there a difference? She was like, yes, there's a difference. So saw her for about 4 months. I was 34. I didn't start drinking until I was 34. I'd never done drugs, anything else like that, because my mom was an addict as well. So I was this guy that always wanted to be in control, didn't want to, lose control of myself, and had never been to a strip club. So one night I was getting lonely. So I walked into the strip club. Actually, I was researched this strip club, and it was Joe's Roundup in Charleston, South Carolina. Joe's Roundup. Little bitty hole in the wall stuff. Real classy. So I walked in, and I'm literally that guy, man, that fell in love with the first stripper that he sees. She walks by, I'm like, that one. So I didn't know the strip club game. I'm, again, criminal, naive as hell. So belly up at the bar, order the beer. I'm sitting there drinking it. She comes over to me, and we start talking, and she's like, would you like to get a bottle of champagne? I was like, does that mean going in back or what? She's like, well, yeah, you need to do the bottle to go in back. And I was like, sure, let's buy a bottle of champagne. $400 bottle of Corbel. Wow. So I'm like, all right. So, and again, that bravado disappears pretty quickly. I get back there, and we talk for 2 hours. And, nowadays I don't understand that most men who go to strip clubs, the strippers are their therapist most of the time. All right. So I'm sitting there talking, we're talking. And of course, she's sizing me up. She's looking at the watch. She's like, what kind of car you drive? Everything else. And I'm like telling her and talking. And so at the end of the night, I'm like, really nice meeting. She's like, it's so nice meeting you too. So I leave.
So you guys just talked. And there's still
no dancing,
feeling of love and all of that.
Yeah. So just talked, got along pretty good. I'm like, I like her. Yeah. So come back in a week later, walk in and call her over. And I was like, look, I said, I'm not, I said, that was my first time to a strip club. I said, don't know you. I like you. I'd like to know you more. Would you like to go out to dinner? And she was like, yeah. I was like, where would you like to go? So she says, Rue de John. And I was like, don't know what it is. That's where we'll go. So I go back, and I had a theater buddy at that point in time because I was trying to get my life. Yeah, trying to get my life together. JC was his name. And I was like, I got a date. And he's like, you got a date? I was like, yeah, man, I got a date. And he's like, okay, where are you going? And I was like, Rue de John. And he's like, take your wallet. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, take your wallet. It's like, all right. So we start, doing the lunch and the dinner thing. And I get to where I really like her. I was 34. She was 23. And got along really well. Listened, had common interest in music and arts and stuff like that. She had, it's stereotypical. She had graduated college with a degree in religious studies.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, all right. So
yeah, you just fell in love.
Yeah, we got along really well, really well. So I ended up moving her in with me. She hadn't quit her job. And what was happening was she was working weekends, and the club would close at 3 or 4. She wouldn't come home until 10 or 11 in the morning. And most of the time it would be a phone call saying, come and pick me up. I can't drive home. And then I'd never used drugs, had never been around. My mom, Valium and pot and things like that. But as far as interacting with her, I'd never done anything like that. By this point in time, I'm kind of getting head over heels with her. I've moved her in with me and everything. And I was 34. I had never went through a woman's purse in my entire life. And so she comes in, passes out. And I'm like, I got to know what the fuck's going on. And went over and went through her purse. Found cocaine. And, the straw, cut off straws and all that stuff. And I'm like, broke my heart. I just sat there and started crying. Got online, and I'm the guy that can find information. So I started looking for forums on strip clubs. Found a forum, found that one, found where it was talking about her prostituting herself to support the habit. And that got me, man. That got me. It's talking about everything she was doing to do that. And
that broke your heart there.
Oh, man. Yeah. So went and I didn't have the heart to tell her that I knew she was a prostitute. But I went to her, and I was like, she was waking up, and I was like, look, I found this in your purse. I can't have that. And she's like, well, you think I'm prostituting? And I was like, no, I don't think that. I knew it, but I didn't mention it to her. And I was like, I can't have that. Well, I don't do that. It's just a one-time thing. I was like, all right. So she went back to work and continued to do it for a couple more weeks. And then finally I was like, I can't. So I picked her up one morning. It was like she couldn't drive home. Before I picked her up, I'd written her a note, left it on the pillow. So I brought her home, tucked her in the bed, and told her I'd be back that night. Told her she had a letter when she woke up. And the letter was basically, I love you. If you can't stop this, don't be here when I get back. And I went to Columbia that day. Came back that night, and she had quit her job. And she quit drugs that night. Really quit them. And I got it in my head that I needed to do whatever I needed to do to make sure she didn't go back to that. That became, that to me, because of my background, that meant spending a lot of money. And so every night was, $300 to $600 for dinner. It was $1,000 shoes every week, $2,000 purse every week, all that. I had most of my money laundered out to Estonia. And Elizabeth, at the same time, she had she quit, but she didn't want me to go anywhere. All right. She wanted me there all the time. I guess that was that connection. I guess she was scared she might go back to something. So ShadowCrew gets busted. I go through basically all my U.S. funds. Can't get anything from overseas. ShadowCrew gets busted October. I can't go into committing tax fraud because season's over. Can't go back into credit fraud because ShadowCrew's been busted. I don't know who to trust online. I'm left with running counterfeit cashier's checks to get money in, trying to make it until, I can start back with some other fraud, and lying to her the entire time.
She knows about none of this.
None of it. And she thinks I've got a shitload of money, and she's got expensive tastes. So, and at the same time, she couldn't be intimate. I mean, the girl loved me. That's the first time I've really said that.
So there's deep love there, both ways.
Yeah.
The things we do.
So, she couldn't be intimate unless she was stone cold drunk. I mean, just stone cold drunk. And I didn't mind her drinking alcohol. I'd rather have that than cocaine. So that was the intimacy there. And I kept thinking if I continued to invest, that it would work out. That just keep going. She'll be all right. We'll be all right. And what happens is like I said, she thought I had money. She wanted a couple of Tiffany engagement rings. So I said, we can get married. I figured a marriage, show her that I love her, show her it's going to be all right. So I was like, oh, let's get married. She's like, wow, I've always wanted a Tiffany ring. I didn't have money to buy the Tiffany ring because all my money was overseas. So here I am. I defraud. So it's counterfeit cashiers. I find a 3-carat ring on eBay for $20,000 and pay for it with a counterfeit cashier's check. At the same time, because she doesn't want me to leave, she needs me there. Typically, if you're doing that type of crime, you need to be traveling. You can't do it in one central area because you're going to be identified pretty quickly. I knew that, but I didn't have much choice. So start running counterfeit cashier's checks to get the money to live and everything. Get the engagement ring. We were scheduled to be married. Our wedding date was February 26th, 2005. February 8th, 2005. I've got a Tiffany wedding band, a couple of them coming in, and I get arrested in Charleston, South Carolina. And she didn't know. I told her, I said, I've got to go pick up those rings. She thought I was just having them sent in. Said, I got to go get those rings. And I said, we'll go out to dinner after that. And I left at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I was arrested at, I think, 11:30, something like that. Of course, I wanted to call her, and the FBI got me. It turns out it was controlled delivery. There were 30 agents in the parking lot. FBI got me. Charleston PD got me. Within 45 minutes, the Secret Service comes in, takes over that investigation. They knew exactly who they had. Along about 7 o'clock at night, they're like, we want to search your house. And I was like, look, I'll sign off on the search if you let me go with you so I can see her. And they were like, okay. So I got to see my phone at that point. I had 140 calls that where she had been trying to call all that time.
She was worried.
Yeah. And so they load me up and hell, I mean, you talk about 10, 12 cars, 40 agents, everything else. She's got a dog at that point. I'm scared they're going to shoot the dog. And it was dark. And they have me walk up, and they're all behind me. I knock on the door and tell her the police are there, and she needs to put the dog up. So she does, and they come in and just start ransacking it, put me in cuffs, set me down, start berating her with questions. She had no idea what the hell was going on.
Were you able to say a word or two to help her understand?
Yeah, I was trying to tell her, and at the same time, they take a watch off her wrist. They let her keep the ring. They're telling her that I'm this guy. What's my real name? Bang, 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 bang across the board.
So she's probably terrified.
Oh yeah. And I tell her, I was like, look, they're going to arraign me tomorrow. Don't come. I said, see what's going on, but don't show up. Of course, she's there the next morning, her and her dad. And she's back in the back crying. They're reading off the charges. I'm under $300,000 bond, everything else. And that's it. They throw me in a cell. Meanwhile, more charges keep coming in, and it's like 10, 12 charges a day at that point. And I'm trying to call her to make sure she's all right. And
does it get through?
So I spend 3 months in jail. And during that 3 months, she visits twice. I get like 3 or 4 phone calls to her. Looking back now, I understand why. Back then it was like I'm the victim. Why doesn't she talk to me? But now I understand why. Hell, the girl loved me too. She found out I was this piece of shit. And after a week in county jail, 2 agents fly in from New Jersey, 2 Secret Service guys, pulled me out of a cell, looked at me, and they were like, "We got your laptop." And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, have you got anything on your laptop?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "You're going to be charged for it." I was like, "I figured." And then he looks at me, he's like, "Can you do anything for us?" And I told him my exact words were, "Look, you let me get back with Elizabeth, I'll do whatever you want me to do." And he looks at me, he's like, "We're going to get you out." I was like, "All right." So they let me sit there for 3 months to get a taste of it.
Mm-hmm.
And get me out. My sister, they have the bond reduced to $1,000. My sister pays the $1,000 bond. By this point, she's disowned me, and because I'm dating the stripper. And Denise bonds me out. The person that I call immediately is Elizabeth. I'm out. And she's like, "I'll be there." I was like, "Okay." So this like 11 o'clock at night. I'm in the parking lot of the Charleston County Jail. Me and a Secret Service agent standing there. And Elizabeth had a friend that owned a limo company. So she pulls up in a limo, gets out, pops the trunk, gets these 2 plastic containers out that have my clothes in them, drops them on the pavement, comes over, hugs me, "Call me later." Gets in the car, drives off. I'm sitting there crying like a baby. Agent looks at me, "Is that your fiance?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I am so sorry." And I'm like, "Yeah." So I had
Oh, she sounds fascinating.
Yeah,
yeah. Pull up in a limo.
I had $30 to my name at that point. Yeah. $30. The agent had to pay for my hotel room that first night. So he drops me off after paying for the hotel room, buy me something to eat. As soon as he drops me off, I take that $30, walk a half mile to Walmart, buy a prepaid debit card so I can start back in tax fraud. As soon as I get back to the hotel room, call Elizabeth, beg her to come see me. She comes to see me, and we talk most of the night and convince her to give me a chance. I tell her that everything's going to be all right. They're going to hire me. I'm going to be this big consultant. Lies, just so she get back with me. And she's like, "Okay." And so we moved from Charleston. The field office is in Columbia, South Carolina. And I'm breaking the law. Even before I start working with them, I'm breaking the law. And so they've got me in the office. The field office, they got this big war room in there. I'm on a laptop outside line. Laptop's hooked up to a 50-inch plasma monitor on the wall. They've got a desktop sitting directly next to me, outside line, 2 Secret Service officers in the room at all times with a South Carolina law enforcement officer. Mm-hmm. My job is 4 to 6 hours a day, surfing the web, picking up targets, intel, teaching them how cybercrime operates, everything else like that. For the first 2 weeks, they are extremely diligent. They pay attention to everything that's going on, ask questions, everything else. But the problem is that shit gets boring real quick because I'm very fast online doing that. So they're like, what the hell is he doing? And it gets tiring looking at a guy just doing that shit. So after 2 weeks, they get lazy and bored, and they start watching porn instead of watching me. At the same time, they've got a keylogger, and they've got Spectre Pro and Camtasia, keyloggers and taking snapshots of everything that I'm doing. Every night it goes on a DVD-ROM on a spindle. So I'm like, they're not going to go through that shit. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, fuck it. Start breaking the law from inside the Secret Service offices while they're in the room. Why not? That continues for 10 months. At the same time, the relationship with Elizabeth fell apart, completely fell apart.
Do you have an understanding of why? It's just because of her heart got broken because there was lying.
It was the
she
trust.
Felt like she did a lot
yeah.
to sacrifice for the relationship.
You got a woman there that she had even said it. She was like, she had told one of her friends, we were out having dinner one night, and this is before I got arrested. She told one of her friends that I was the only guy that ever asked her to stop using drugs.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say that part of the story is so powerful, and then that she chose to do it, and she chose to stop.
And she told me that there was one instance. She told me that if she didn't marry me, she'd never be married. And as far as I know, she's never been married.
And so it started to fall apart there.
Yeah, because I was that piece of shit.
Still, you didn't take a step. By the way, can I just say how just moving it is, how honest you are, Brett?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for being that person. But at that time, there's still that lying.
Oh, man. Yeah. So it's falling apart. She wants to start going to strip clubs. And I'm like, fuck it. Why not? We'll go. So we start going to strip clubs, and she'll come back and get wasted, and we'll have sex, what have you. And one night, she looks at me and she was like, I think it'd be funny if you got a blowjob from somebody else. And that got me. I was like, to me, that was the final straw right there. I was like, she doesn't care for me anymore or anything else like that. We've been going to strip clubs, so I started dating another stripper. And she knew something was going on. And she looks at me one day and she's like, why don't you just tell me that it's over? And I looked at her and I said, it's over. We're done. And I told her, I was like, look, I said, whatever you want. We were renting an apartment. I was like, whatever you want in here, take it. And I said, not only that, but I'll make sure you got money for several months so you're all right. And I was like, just leave me, leave my TV and leave me some plates and stuff. So I go to work that day at the Secret Service, come back that night, and she's taken everything and left a picture of herself in the bedroom on the floor. I'm like, okay, I guess I deserve that. So
she's got, I like her. She's got,
yeah, she was cool. She was cool. So I'm giving her $1,000 like every 2 weeks or some shit like that. And it gets to the point, because I'm doing this tax fraud from inside the offices. Well, the debit card companies are pinging the cards. They start to realize that, hey, some son of a bitch is stealing money using our debit card. So they start to shut down the cards before I can pull cash out. So I start not to have the money to send to her. And I'm like, So she calls and she's like, look, I have to have money. And I was like, well, look, I'm doing what I can. You promised money. And I was like, look, if you knew what I was doing to get this money, you wouldn't be asking that. And she's like, I need money. My rent's behind by a month right now. And I'm like, your rent's behind? She's like, yeah. So I was like, okay. So I pick up the phone, call the rental office. And I was like, just want to make sure that, I'm sorry I'm behind on the rent for this apartment number. Oh, no, that rent's paid up 3 months. It's like, okay, hang up, call Elizabeth back. I was like, you're behind on the rent. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, funny. They just said you're up on it 3 months. And she gets quiet and she's like, well, you lied to me too. And I was like, you're right. I did that.
Yeah.
I was like, but look, I can't do it anymore. And that's the last time I spoke to her right there.